and we're here for the conference Urban Africa, New Strategies for the World's Fastest Growing Continent. And we have an amazing crew of international speakers today, reflecting on the challenges and possible solutions for this urbanization that is taking place on the African continent, discussing, amongst others, how the relation is between the informal urbanization that is taking place and formal planning, and what the role of the architect is, most specifically.
The most important priority in some ways is to know what we're talking about. So at the moment, the statistics that's available on this is completely unreliable.
From a point of view as a researcher, I think there is need for a lot of research to go into African cities just to try and understand this new dynamic.
Never, ever take any figure about Africa for granted, because we don't know. We simply don't know.
So I think figuring out how we can take new measurement technologies like Google Earth and so forth with information that is crowdsourced from cell phone usage and so forth, and combine that with traditional statistical instruments, but really calibrate them to help us understand at quite a fine grain what is happening in these cities is really important.
A large share of the urban population will live in secondary cities. And in these cities, the planner and the architect are very welcome. It is a less complex dynamics, at least a less complex urban dynamics, in which making a plan can create a lot of benefits, social and economic benefits.
We can make it into a globally networked urbanism.
It is important to bypass or to avoid paper plans. That means that we're not going to work with cities for 10 years to make a master plan that is already old at the moment that it's approved, but to select a certain set of projects, a certain set of areas in the city in which concrete planning can be demonstrated.
Often architects are undermined and almost ridiculed by economists and by other forms of social science and other sciences. I think it becomes very important that architects realize their importance and that they start to communicate better with the other disciplines.
The usual practice of urban planning is simply not good enough anymore.
I'm very optimistic about architects and planners' role in the city, if the architects and planners are willing to open to also the financial and the legal mechanism that is needed to get the planning machine, the planning mechanism running.
Today we're also presenting the Density Syndicate, which was a research by design project that INTI did for the last year, together with ACC, the African Centre for Cities, and the City of Cape Town, investigating what the role of density could be for solving a lot of the social, economic and spatial problems that Cape Town has.
Let's say there is so much value in the site itself, infrastructure. There is lots of nutrients, there is lots of water, there is lots of people, there are lots of connections between people, etc., which can immediately come into value.
So the role of architects is also shifting, and I think that's something we can learn from the locals, who are very much into participation planning and very much into creating new value chains, new value models, value cases, where human capital is essential part of the business case. People don't have money, but they've got time and they want to build on their own futures.
Density can also mean something for urbanity, connecting people, connecting them to each other, to social possibilities, to emancipation, and therefore creating a much wider definition of what density can actually do.
Government needs and cities need to refocus their investments in the urban sector to respond to the real needs of the majority of the population.
Even for good planning precedent, you don't necessarily have to come to Rotterdam to find it. You can find it in the context of Africa.
I think the advantage of designers, including architects, planners and so forth, is that they are able to give us a visual language to talk about the systemic interdependencies between these variables. But of course, what they can't bring to the fore is the cultural specificity. So I think you need these interdisciplinary conversations that is provoked by a visual register, visual language that can help us understand how do you both manage, but also how do you unleash the power of space that is reimagined and recast with the tools of design.
So looking back on the results of today, it is clear that a number of really exciting possibilities came about. We need to work on it, and we need to design it also to come up with an alternative for the glossy neoliberal cities that are being designed by all kinds of foreign international offices and are being plugged into Africa with what we think could be disastrous results.